stop it. Just stop it. Stop trying to be perfect because you're not. And that's okay. The idea of perfectionism or being a perfectionist has become so ingrained in our society that we think it's a good thing. But in reality, it's not. And it's a myth, basically. There is no perfect person that's able to do everything the exact right way, the exact correct way. And it's just an ideal that people strive for, but doesn't really help them. In fact, I would argue that perfectionism is actually a product of fear when you think about it. And the reason it is a product of fear is because when you think about the person who's a perfectionist, when you think about the psychology that's involved with trying to be perfect every single time, it's driven more by fear than anything else. The fear of making a mistake, the fear of failing, the fear of looking stupid or being embarrassed about something. And that's not exactly a healthy fear when you think about it. Because being afraid to make mistakes, really, it'll just stress you out in the long run. And that's why these perfectionists are the people you find in movies and in stories, that they're the ones who eventually get sick, who eventually get overworked and stressed out. And then they're the ones who end up losing everything because they've been overworked, because they've been overstressed. And they lose their health, basically. They get into the hospital, they get into an accident, and then their life falls apart all around them. So being perfectionism isn't something you should strive for, even when it comes to art. I mean, you think about somebody like Stephen King versus somebody like Harper Lee. Harper Lee is known to have created a masterpiece in To Kill a Mockingbird. Compare that to someone like Stephen King, who's written dozens and dozens of novels and earns a living from each and every one of them. And then you compare also Stephen King to someone like George R. R. Martin, who still, to this very day, has not written his final book out of a fear of failure and a fear of being or having it end perfectly. So he's so inclined towards that perfectionism that it stops him from writing. And you compare that with Stephen King, who just writes every single day and doesn't really care about being perfect. Because in his book on writing, he actually says that the important part in writing is actually the editing. And in editing, he ruthlessly cuts stuff that he thinks or he thought at first would serve the novel or would fit in well with the novel, but ends up being, but ends up not being a good fit. And maybe you can relate to Harper Lee or to George R. R. Martin to a certain extent, in that, you want your first novel to be a masterpiece like Harper Lee. You want your first and only novel to really make it out there, to really become popular, to go viral, to be a hit, basically. Or you want to be like Tolkien, who only wrote The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and is known for just this thing. And while it's a great ideal to strive for, it's a one in a million chance, basically. You're more inclined to follow the route of Stephen King rather than Harper Lee or J.R.R. Tolkien. In fact, Thomas Jefferson once said, "I'm a great believer in luck, and I find that the harder I work, the more I have of it." Basically, it suggests that the harder you work, the more chances of success you will have. When you think about people who are prolific in their art, like Stephen King or like Picasso, Picasso has hundreds, maybe even thousands of paintings. And there are these people who churn out basically their art or their stories or their novels one after the other. They're very prolific at it. They're more likely to gain success because of the many ideas they put out compared to if they just went one off like Harper Lee, just published this one novel and hope that it would hope that it would make it big, basically. And the idea is basically that for every piece of art or piece of work that you put out there, think of it like a lottery ticket. For every piece of work that you put out there, that you publish, it's another ticket that will help you get those millions. And so the more output you have, the more chances of success you will have. Compared to if you just bought one lottery ticket or one golden ticket and that's all you ever had, you may or may not get that success. But you leave it up to chance rather than doing the work and creating that success for yourself. Even when you think about YouTube as it is now, more and more people are gravitating towards videos that are less perfect, basically. They're more imperfect, they're more natural, they're more raw. And this reminds me of a story that I once heard in a podcast, in an interview with Brian McDonald. For those of you who don't know, Brian McDonald is an author and a director and a screenwriter, basically. So he's an award-winning director who's also worked with Pixar. So he taught story structure to all the folks, animators, and directors over at Pixar when they were in their earlier years. And he taught them how to write a good story. And so in this podcast interview, he talked about this story wherein a student asked a teacher, and the teacher was a playwright with some success on Broadway. And the student asked him, how can he get his play on Broadway? And so the teacher answered by asking the student a question. So have you written a play? And the student answers, no, I haven't written a play. And so the teacher goes back, well, first you have to write a play. And then you have to write another play. And then you have to write another play. And then maybe it'll be on Broadway. And that turned off the student so much because he figured that, maybe this guy who's seen some success will actually give me good advice. And when you think about it, that is actually the best advice that he could give him. Because doing the work and shipping your work and putting it out there and publishing it is what will help catapult you towards that success that you want to have. Again, the harder you work, the more luck you'll end up having. So the more stuff you put out there, the more chances you have at one going viral. Because it's the same thing that people do on YouTube. Every guru, every teacher, every course creator that you go to, they'll tell you practically the exact same thing. That you have to go out and create more videos. Create as many as videos you can, especially at the start. They tell you to experiment with different things and see what sticks. See what resonates with your audience. And then once you see something gain a little bit of success, then you lean into it and then you milk it for all that it's worth, basically. And it's the same thing, or it's the same process when it comes to building a creative career or a career in the arts. Doing what you love, pursuing your passion, and pursuing your dreams. And so I hope that this is a sign, or you take this as a sign to stop trying to be perfect, stop striving to create that masterpiece that you want to create. And just put your work out there, no matter how clumsy or embarrassing it may seem. Chances are somebody may resonate with it, may like it to the degree that they'll pay for it, and that they'll follow you or subscribe to your channel or to your social media. And just keep putting your stuff out there, keep creating art, because I believe that you're here for a purpose, and I believe that part of that purpose is to create. Otherwise, you wouldn't find this video, you wouldn't lean into it, you wouldn't watch it until this point, unless you had that desire to really create a life for yourself around your passion and around your dreams. And so whatever it is you're working on right now, stop trying to make it perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Give yourself permission to fail or to make a mistake, to make a few mistakes. Put it out there once you think it's ready, once it's ready enough, or once it's finished, and just see how it does. See how people react to it, if people will resonate with it. And then go on and move to the next piece of art that you're working on. So go out, create, and put it out there.